Morning everybody, it's the cleaning guy here. I thought maybe it was about time we get started on this Jeep 225 Dauntless engine. We tore that down several weeks ago and just haven't had time to do much more with it, but I think today I'm going to attempt to get the block checked out here. We want to bore the cylinders, surface the deck, finish the cylinders, and maybe at the same time, while we're doing some of that work, we can fit in reconditioning the connecting rods. Let's start by pulling out some of the dowel pins on the deck surface here. It's got a slide hammer here with collets, and then we should be able to pull them right out. Those came out real easy. A few quick Magnaflex checks here. Sometimes you'll find where there's a sharp angle like this in the water jacket. That's a spot where it's easy for a crack to occur if they've been frozen. Everything seems to look good on this block. If I remember right, when we tore this block down, that plug right there would not come out, and I rounded it out on the inside with the Allen wrench without being able to get it to come out of there. Got my wire feed welder here ready. Hold the nut right over the top of that plug, and I'm just going to fill that full of weld. Everybody close your eyes. Now that that's cooled just a little bit, I'll spray a little bit of penetrating oil. Taking broken bolts and plugs and things like this out takes a lot of patience. You start pushing it, you'll just break things off, have worse mess than when you started. That's tempting to just grab with my fingers and unscrew, but I've tried that before and it didn't feel very good. There we have it. It's out. Okay, I think we're ready to set up over on the boring machine. So at this point, I've got the block mounted up on the fixture here, laid it over 45-degree angle, so that puts the deck surface perfectly flat, parallel to the table of the machine, makes the cylinders perpendicular to my boring head here, and I have the centering fingers down in there. I will turn this on to indicate it. And you can see up here on the dial, I'm running pretty true. Probably never will be perfect when you're indicating off of a worn cylinder, but you try to pick a spot that's not worn too bad. So I went down about halfway. And with that being done, I can come back up out of the cylinder. You can see that centering finger there that follows the cylinder and shows us up here on the dial what's happening. I have a cutter set up here to bore a few thousandths shy of my 20 over that I want to make this block. I've got my stop set over here so it will stop and retract when it gets to the bottom of the cylinder. Start it running here. Let's go ahead and power feed it on through. There we go. We're cutting that first hole.
Hey everyone, after a long day of working here in the machine shop, the last thing I want to stress about is dinner. And that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in, HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. No more stressful grocery store trips and no recipe boredom. Choose from 30+ calorie smart and protein smart recipes each week. And when you sign up, you get free breakfast for life. That's one free breakfast item in every box while your subscription is active. I first tried HelloFresh back in college when the calculus homework and physics exams were consuming every ounce of my life, and while my time isn't spent studying for hours on end anymore, I still stay pretty busy between work and life with a new baby girl. So it's great to have something quick, healthy, and delicious without all the hassle. HelloFresh is super flexible. You can easily change your meal options, delivery dates, or even skip a week when things get busy. And with summer behind us and busier days ahead, HelloFresh is the go-to for wholesome, customizable meals that save both time and money. Everything's pre-portioned, so you only pay for what you need. Best of all, you can support the channel by subscribing to HelloFresh. Every purchase helps us keep making awesome content for you, so click the link in the description or use my code to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active if you're in the US. Outside the US, the local discount will apply. Don't miss out on America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. Thanks for the support.
Okay, I think it just finished. It's retracting back up out of the cylinder there. Okay, I'm hoping to be about 3/1000ths or more away from finished size. So let's see where we're at. About 2.5. I could probably adjust that out. I'd like to leave a little bit more than that to hone out. So I'll change my cutter just a little bit before I go on to the next cylinder, but they'll be fine anyway. Information I have says center to center distance on the cylinders is 4.242. So I'm going to move over that much by my DRO up here. And then I'm going to put the centering fingers back in. And let's see how close I am to being where we think that cylinder is supposed to be. Often surprises me how far blocks are off from what the blueprint says. So let's check it there. Yeah, I'm quite a bit on my numbers here. Let's see if I can get this dialed in a little bit closer. Okay, I'm running pretty true on my indicator up here. So that's telling us side to side, we're off 1/1000th from what I think the blueprint should be. And we're about 13.5 this way from one cylinder to the next. We're not going to try to correct that. We're just going to run with it the way it was from the factory. In fact, going 20/1000ths oversize on the bore, that would never, I could not bring those in line with each other. And on the engine like this, it will make no difference. No one will ever know in the way it runs. I mean, if we was trying to get every last little horsepower out of it, we might get a half a horsepower more if that was corrected. So it just isn't necessary. And while that's running through, I'm going to go over here and grab my rods and see if I can get started cutting the caps and rods to get those resized. While I was getting ready to set up and do rods, this cylinder finished. So let's pull the cutter out, and I'm going to go to minus 4.242. And we'll put our centering fingers back in. Okay. I've got it dialed in there, looking good. Interesting. Again, our spacing this direction is just about correct. But on this one, I'm 5/1000ths off again from the center cylinder. We're going to leave that alone, not worry about it. Switch our cutters, and away we go. Yeah, I adjusted that cutter just a little. I'm leaving about 3.5 there now to finish. And the idea when you recondition connecting rods is we have to grind a little bit off of the parting line between the cap and the rod. So when we torque this back together, it makes the hole smaller. And then we'll hone it back to standard size. So a standard OD outside diameter bearing will fit back in that rod again. The problem is when I grind the cap, bring this in this way, it makes the hole smaller this direction, but it does do nothing for the size. So we're actually going to place a thin feeler gauge about 10/1000ths under one side here as we grind the rod, and it'll actually grind at a bit of an angle so that when we put this cap back on, not only will it be smaller in this direction, but that angle will cause it to suck the sides of the rods in when it's torqued down and bring the sides in so we have closer to a perfect circle when we go over to the hone. Grind only one side. turn the rod around and grind the other side. And then we'll do the same thing with the caps, with the exception we'll not use the feeler gauge on there. We'll just grind the cap square. Okay, while that was going on, it looks like the cylinder finished being bored. Let's pull the cutter out of here. And while we're set up in this position, I want to surface the deck of the block. So we're going to have to change the cutter head here. I want to feed down so I'm almost touching the block. If I put a piece of paper in between, I can feel when I'm almost there. Okay, it's dragging pretty good, so I'm probably within about 3/1000ths. This little piece here that keeps you from accidentally engaging the wrong direction of feed, I move it from the X-axis travel to the Z-axis travel here so we don't accidentally feed down while we're surfacing the block. That could get real ugly in a hurry. I'm going to zero the X or the Z-axis, and probably about 3/1000ths that should touch off. Now I can hear it there just at 3.5. Let's take maybe, I think 3/1000ths would be a good number off the deck surface there. Just the way that looks, I think that would easily clean up what we have. So again, I'm going to go back and zero now that I have touched off. So there's our 3/1000ths, and we'll start the travel. Sounds like that's giving us a nice cut. So let's let that run while I go back over here and work on the rods again. Rods and caps are done. I'm going to put a little bit of a chamfer on the edges on the parting line so that, well, we're going to build this engine, but anyway, when whoever the assembler is, when you get ready to push your rod bearing down in here, if this edge is sharp, it'll scrape metal off the back side of the bearing. We don't want to have that happen, chance of it getting in the bearing itself, and it's just not good to scrape that metal away. So I'll put just a little chamfer on this edge, just enough so it's not sharp. Doesn't take much, just a little bit there just breaks the edge so we won't have problems scraping the bearing. Same process with the rod. We just want to knock that sharp edge off. See, just enough to make that edge, sharp edge go away. Sounds like the surfacer has finished making its pass across this head. Well, I think I'm going to call that good. Get this thing to focus. Come on. Yeah, surface is all cleaned. There's a little bit of discoloration up here in this area, but that's in an open area of the gasket. Makes no difference whatsoever, purely cosmetic. Everything that head gasket has to seal on looks good. So let's roll this block over to the opposite side, and we'll do the same thing over there. Roll the block my direction. Okay, if you watch up here on the Z-axis, you'll notice that we finished the other side at 3/1000ths. I'm going to raise this back up, and then we'll touch off on this side again and see if it's anywhere close to being the same as what the opposite side was. Okay, this side, I'm actually hearing a little bit of cutting action going on there at 6.5 thousandths above where the opposite deck was. So I think what we better do is take this side just to 0 on the first pass, and then we'll make it 3 thousandths lower to match the opposite bank on a second pass. All right, well, that's making the pass. Let's go back to our rods. I need to put the bolts back in and put the caps back on the correct rod. I'm just going to use a little bit of engine oil on the rod bolts here. Okay, this is connecting rod number 6. I need to put the caps in order. There's 4, 1. So let's just start them all here, and then we'll push them in on the press. These bolts do have a flat on one side of the head that I have to line up as I'm putting them in. We have this little jig here that will go over the bolt. I can support this in the press and come down on here, and it'll push both bolts in together. I can come down, push those right into place. It's as simple as can be. Sounds like those Surfacers made its first pass over here. Now this bank is off just a little bit from what the other side was. You can see here, focus, focus, come on. There we go. You can see this area here did not clean up in spite of us having made what was roughly a 5 thousandths cut from this corner over here. There's some areas here that are not quite clean. Some that on this part, just like the other side was, that does not matter. That's an open area in the gasket. So I think by the time we give this another 3 thousandths here, like we did on the other side, focus for me, there we go. Okay, there we are. Let's go ahead and turn this on. Turn on the table traverse. I'm going to slow the speed down to about 100 millimeters per minute, just like we had before. Engage the feed, and it should make its way across the head. It's moving very slow. We put our little chip guard back on. It's nothing fancy, but it does the job. And we'll go back to working on our rods. Always be careful when you're using something like that press. You want to keep your hands out of harm's way as much as you can, but sometimes you do just have to gently hold things in place. But if you're going to hold things in place, hold it in such a manner that if that press did come down faster than you thought it was gonna, it's not gonna smash your finger in the process. Rod bolts do need to be pressed back into place. You can't just put them in part way and expect that the nut is going to pull them into place when you torque it on, because sometimes there's enough of a press fit here where the bolt goes through the rod that the torque alone will not pull it into place. And I'll guarantee you put your engine together and that bolt's not all the way in, it will pull the rest of the way in once that engine fires up, and you'll have one of these going for a trip right through the side of the block. This one I see my number 6 on the cap. Tap those together. I'm going to get out my nuts here. I'll oil them up a little bit. Start them on. My numbers are together just like they were when we took it apart. Bearing tangs are both on the same side together. Not all engines are that way, but most of them are. Just going to snug them down here. I'm going to make them tight by no means. Now we'll move over to the other side here to the rod vise. On an old Clevite bearing book here, I'll look up specifications on those. 30 to 40 pounds, and then our bearing OD diameter that we'll use when we get over to the hone. So I need to torque these 30 to 45. Excuse me, 30 to 40. Clamping the rod in this vise here will pull the cap into alignment with the rod itself. Kind of simulates what it'll be like when it's on the engine. Okay, there's our 40 pounds. And in the meantime, the surfacer has finished making its way across that head. Okay, looking at the top of the block here, it has cleaned up all those areas that we felt were an issue before. Even left the serial number on the block there. Not that anyone cares on this because it's not a numbers matching vehicle or anything, but I know a lot of you people get pretty excited about that. So the number is there, still read it. So now we need to switch back to the boring head, and we'll go down through the last 3 cylinders. Nothing important. Check my work. Tell me what you think. Which inserts are you using? That's the new ones, and they're leaving that same finish like the others. So I don't know why or what's going on. And I went ahead and I thought I'd try something different. I ran them full speed just to see what they do.
Well, that was a waste of $200 then.
Well, not really, because we needed new inserts anyway.
Yeah, but if they do the same thing as the Haas ones, they're
$5 a piece.
Yeah, fifth the price. As with this camera that I did, a slow-mo shot.
Hang on, everybody. I gotta look at what Nicholas did. Okay, all the rods are torqued. So I'm going to set this on the small side of that spec. So I know as I'm honing those rods out, I have to hone at least to that size or slightly more. So 2.1247. Get 2.
Bye.
See ya. Will she say bye back? Gotta go say goodbye to Nicholas's kid. So while we were off there a little bit, the boring machine here finished going through that cylinder. But this bank does not have as much chamfer at the top of the cylinders as the opposite side did. It's just the way it is, the way it came from the factory. So I do have my other cutter here ready to go that has basically a 45 on here. I'm going to put that in, and we will touch off on the top there to give that a nice chamfer. Always make sure to disengage the down feet before we start this process, because that could be real ugly if all of a sudden you sent that cutter down through. Now, that left me a little bit more even of an edge on there. I'll probably want to do that with all of the cylinders on this bank. Now that one we were off 1/1000ths in the X direction, and we're back to within 2.5 thousandths of the very first cylinder we started with. All right, so while that's going, let's continue on checking our rods. Yeah, there's plenty there to hone out, make them round again. That one, the cap's not lined up as well as I would like. I may try to adjust that one a little. What I'm trying to show you folks there is when I go across the parting line from side to side, there's quite a discrepancy there, like the cap is not lined up side to side. So I'm gonna loosen that back up and try to adjust it just a little bit, see if I can make that look better before I start honing on that rod. If this was in the engine, the bearing would be up against the crankshaft and pulling that back a little straighter than what it is there right now. Okay, I adjusted that a little bit. It looks better on the gauge right now. Go ahead and retorque it. Oh, much better. Yeah, a whole lot better. I like that. Okay, in the meantime, our cylinder has finished boring. Now we need to move over to the other side. Again, our 4.242 from center of that first cylinder. You can see we came out at 4.244, so we're 0.02 off on our center in the XY axis and 13.5 in the Y axis, which is not going to make any difference, but it just kind of shows how far these blocks are off and why when you're doing a performance engine, you have to spend so much time bringing everything back into the original blueprint dimensions. So this will be the last hole to rough bore. Okay, at this point here, we have the block rough bored, all the cylinders cleaned up, deck surface is done, nice chamfer on the top of the cylinders here that did not have one. The other bank over here, there was quite a bit from the factory, but the block is done at that point on that machine. Now we need to move over to the cylinder hone. This will focus. Move over to the cylinder hone and finish the cylinders, but I can't do that at the same time I'm doing the rods over here. So let's finish the rods and then we'll move back to finishing the cylinders on the block. Now we've cut the caps, torqued the rods back down, and now they are measuring too small. I need to be over here at the 0. So I've set up the hone here with a rough cut stone. We'll put this in and we'll hone a few passes here until I feel like the rod is coming in maybe a little bit closer to being round. Yeah, we're getting down there. Not perfectly round yet, but it's getting there. I don't think this will take too long on these rods. They are a cast rod. They hone pretty easily. We're a little bit under 2 thousandths to go. Yeah, that gives us about 0.5 thousandths to go. I'm going to lay that down here in the hone where the oil runs past that so it will cool while we're doing the next one. All 6 rods are roughed out to within 1/2 thousandths of the minimum bore size. And now I want to switch my stones here, go back to a little bit finer finish stone. Having done the rods in this way and laid them back down in here, they've had time to cool down because they will generate a little bit of heat while you're working on them. And we'll go back and put the finishing touches on. So this rod here appears that I have about 5/10 to go. Maybe a 1/10 taper in it. I'll have to work on that a little bit. I'm going to turn the pressure down because when you finish, you want a little less pressure. It'll help make them round, give a better finish. So let's see how this goes. There we are. We're just barely past 0, right at it. And I think I heard somebody come through the gate, so let's check, see who is here. My specifications of the rods gives me 5/10,000ths leeway from tightest to loosest that we can be on this. I like to put them right in the middle. So let's work on this, see if we can get this one right in the middle of that spec, which would be about 2 or 3 of these little marks into the green past 0. Yeah, that did it. We're between the 2 and 3 mark. There we have it. Rods are done. I don't know if you can see it real well there, but they are completely cleaned up on the inside, even on the parting line. There's no shadows or anything there. These should hold a bearing every bit as good as they did when they were brand new. Real pleased with the way they came out. So now we can move back over there to the cylinder hone. I may just put this on a time lapse and let you kind of watch as I move the block from the boring machine to the hone. So I've got the block set up in the cylinder hone here. I've made all the rough adjustments, got it set to the right height, got my hone head close to the right size. I've set my stroke speed and my spindle RPM speed and stroke length. So let's see about making a few passes in here. I had earlier measured my cylinders here, set my bore gauge. I've got probably 3.5, maybe 4 thousandths to hone out of those. I did put a little bit of color here, some Dykem on my diamond stones. I want to see how true they're running. Give us a visual of what's happening. So here we go. I'll go real easy. First time here, make sure there's no clearance issues. Okay, let's stop there, take our initial measurement. So that's showing about 2.5, a little over 3 at the top. I need to work with this a little bit. It's not quite straight yet. I think that will come out of it as I hone just a little bit more. I think I could run just a little bit higher pressure. So we'll move that up 1 notch. Okay. Let's see how we're looking. Yes, that cylinder has straightened out considerably. I've got roughly a little over 2 thousandths to go. at the bottom. So I come up here towards the top, maybe just 2/10 more, but it has straightened itself out. So we're on the right track here. Looking at my stones, they're all making good contact with the cylinder wall. Every one of them has worn the dicom off. Look real nice. Just for fun, I'm going to move over to a different cylinder and see how it comes out. One 3/10. And just a little tighter at the bottom, and then it runs about 1/1000 all the way to the top. Probably that's generating a little heat. By the time we come back and hit that second time there, I think it'll finish straightening out. So let's continue on here. Let me speed things along. There's not going to be much to see other than just watching the hone. At this point, I have finished up with my roughing stones. I've got the cylinders just where I want them to be, just slightly beyond minimum clearance. So I think if we go in now, I've put the finished stones in. Since we are still kind of just starting out with most of this stuff and breaking them in, I'm going to coat them with dicom again, just like I did the other set of stones, the roughing stones. That way it kind of gives me an idea if we have them properly broken in, although they have been working real good. I just want to kind of make one last check here again. I think what we'll do is give this probably, let's give it 12 strokes. Kind of what I've been finding is somewhere between 10 and 20 is my magic sweet spot that gives us the proper cylinder finish. So here we go. If you're counting along with me, you may count more strokes than the 12 I have talked about. When I start counting is when I feel it put pressure on the cylinder wall, and that's something you probably cannot see on camera. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have the stylus attached to the cylinder down there, and it's connected here to the meter that should show our numbers. Let's go ahead and run this and see what kind of numbers we get. Okay, you can see on the graph there, we're coming across, graphing what that surface finish looks like. All right, our numbers should be coming up here shortly. RK of 50 to 51. 50 is the high side of where I'd like to be. My RPK is okay. It's about 14 there, and I'd like to be under 20, 5 to 20. And the RVK is 68. So let's go ahead and give that a few more strokes with that finish hone. I think we can bring those numbers down to more of an acceptable number. Okay, I did half a dozen more strokes on that cylinder with the hone, and I'm liking my numbers a lot better. 38 on the RK, which puts me in the 30 to 50 range. 13, where I should be 5 to 20. And my RVK, 62, which I want in a range of 50 to 100. So I'm right in the range of where we need to be. So it looks like probably about 25 strokes of the finish hone gets me where I need to be on this block. So we'll roll over to the other side, see if we can repeat these results. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I believe we're finished honing on the block. All of my numbers have come out exactly in the range of where I'd like them to be. All 3 cylinders checked out good. 3 on the other side are good. Since it is a weekend, I'm gonna take this block loose, stand it up there and hone, and just let it drain over the weekend. And then next week, we can get started doing the final wash and the assembly on this engine.